You're tuning in to the Bueno Power Hour podcast. Hey guys, this is Arthur Bueno for the Bueno Power Hour podcast, and on this episode I am speaking with Daniel Dominguez. He is the frontman for the band Farooq and also a rapper and producer currently residing in Fresno, California. We speak about a couple of things, kind of just a little bit on straight edge culture, just the music scene itself. We kind of get nostalgic on some of the bands that we used to listen to and such. So, yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show. Hey guys, welcome to a second episode of the Bueno Power Hour podcast. I am your host, Arthur Bueno. And my guest today is a really good friend of mine by the guy named Daniel Dominguez. If you don't know him, he's actually the frontman of the band Farooq. He's also a rapper and a producer. And he's also pretty well known in the Fresno, California scene as being kind of... I don't know. Maybe if you can kind of enlighten me on this, maybe you're probably one of the reasons why, sort of straight edge hardcore kind of exists in Fresno. Maybe, possibly.
Possible. I know that I was. Hi, hi, Art. Come on, brother.
So,
don't be nervous, dude. It's just me.
Well, this is kind of like...
He said guy named Daniel Dominguez.
This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, so...
Is it against the rules to roast your life away during this thing?
You know what, dude?
Just relentlessly just roast...
Well, you know what, dude? If you have to, then do it.
I couldn't get you like that, man. I love you too much. Anyway, so it looks like we went right into, part of my background.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is totally cool.
And that's
so... yeah.
It's
cool that you've... Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm kind of interrupting.
By all means.
By kind of, sort of knowing Daniel, I've known him for quite some time. A big, actually, inspiration to me, at least. He sort of... well, not really sort of, but he got me into the path of going straight edge. And I did have quite a bit of an issue with, drinking and, smoking and such, doing, drugs here and there. But at one point, when I needed to find solace, this guy, Daniel, was the one who actually helped me to kind of stay motivated and stay inspired on it. So knowing him, in my relationship with Daniel, I think it was quite different from most of the people that associated with him. I guess I never felt judged, and even though we were in kind of two different worlds, he sort of accepted me by, just by who I am as an artist and just as a human being. So, and that's why we're still friends today. I mean, I still support this dude as much as I can. Really love
his work. Which is a ton.
But anyway, let's get right into it, man. So let's kind of just sort of talk about
well, if you wanted, I can kind of clarify, because you said that you viewed me as the reason straight edge hardcore exists in Fresno.
Sure.
I don't think I can take full credit for that, but I can say that I kind of ended up being one of the torchbearers for a good number of years in the music scene. But I was a second or third generation behind other dudes that were straight edge that influenced me, that I went to go watch their bands play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
all have since left the scene, and I think if not all of them, most of them decided not to hold their promises.
Mm-hmm.
But that's another conversation for later. But yeah, so I ended up being for a good stretch of years, like I guess maybe what would seem to be like the band I had at least was like the catalyst for a lot of like the next one. So each group of kids and each band kind of passes it to the younger ones. So once I caught it, I had the band, you know what I mean, that caught the next ones, that had the bands that caught the next ones, and so on and so forth. So maybe from like 2003 to like 2006 or 7, like that's kind of like when I was influencing the next generation of folks that decided to take it on and pass it along. You know what I mean? So
yes,
but it did kind of make a bigger resurgence once I was involved. But I don't think that was just me. I just happened to be the face of the band that was the straight edge hardcore band in Fresno. So we were instantly associated with the entire scene, and instantly, unfortunately for some people, the representatives of that entire scene. You know what I mean? Because we were kind of wild sometimes.
Sure.
And you know, it kind of is what it is. But yeah, so there's that part of it.
Well,
but when it comes to background, like that's just, you know, those years.
Yeah. So what I wanted to kind of let you guys know that Daniel was in this band called Prove It, which was probably one of the most known straight edge hardcore bands in the Fresno scene. And you know, I was lucky enough to actually see and actually perform those songs years ago. But you know, a while ago I had actually listened to those songs. I'm just like, man, you know, like this. Even knowing the beginnings of like your body of work, you kind of knew what you wanted in the beginning, and the kind of that's kind of what I kind of wanted to touch on it as I'm reading my like liner notes here. With the kind of imagination you have for hardcore, you know, how was hardcore, how was punk and hardcore introduced to you? Were you associated with people who kind of gave you sort of this not I guess what I'm trying to ask is like had they introduced you, did you have friends that had like introduced you to this like type of music, or did you find it on your own, or was it something that kind of just fell in your lap? I mean, like how did you find punk and hardcore growing up?
Well, growing up, my best friend and I, we like listen to all kinds of music. But he was into like even as a youngster, he was into like Motown, but then he was also into like heavy metal and stuff because his uncle was. So like I had kind of a little bit of a palate for that, watching pro wrestling, and a lot of like pro wrestlers had like these. Now I look back, I'm like, yo, that sounds like straight up like Hatebreed riff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or something. But like, you know, some of them had entrance themes that were kind of hardcore-ish. I used to listen to Rage Against the Machine a lot, like when I was like a freshman in high school. And I was really, I mean, still am really into hip hop. So like, I was freestyling a lot my freshman year, and we used to get to these like freestyle ciphers in like certain classes where you can kind of waste time, you know. And I ended up meeting a couple of like the local straight edge kids who also were into hip hop, and were trying to rap. And so I used to freestyle with those dudes. And I didn't realize it until like they would always invite me to shows, and I'd be like, what? Like I feel like an idiot now, but like I could have watched Blood Has Been Shed play in 2002.
Oh wow!
And Throwdown play in 2001 or 2002. Like,
wow.
Which was like the Throwdowns, like albums that came out around then are like still some of my favorite pieces of music ever. But I was like, man, I'm not into that mosh pits. Like I was like, you know, it was before I got into skate.
Right.
Oh, sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to like cuss on your
no, it's okay.
audio show. Bleep me out, it'll be funnier. So yeah, I used to like freestyle with these kids, and like one of them was like one of my favorite beatboxers. So I always kicked it around him because he had like the best beatboxes for me to freestyle over. Well, that guy is Nick Andrews, who was at the time playing guitar for his band Once We Were,
Wow.
which were like those guys consisted when their band broke up into two pieces. What ended up being was Dead Elizabeth and Occam's Razor, which ran completely separate scenes on their own, but then still like collaborated for shows and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So like those guys were my intro to shows, and I went to these shows at the Elements, which was in Tower District. It was this Christian nightclub, and that's where Once We Were played, and we saw just a whole bunch of different kinds of bands. There's maybe one show a month. The Underground magazine, which put them on, which is the Ryland family, Frankie and Beth. Hi, Frankie and Beth. I love them. Those people are still like some of my favorite people on earth, and they're some of my best friends. They're like parent figures to me. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
They're the first people to be on my case about anything, and I respect it and appreciate it. So they were the ones putting on the shows, and I mean, I was just like a crazy kid into pro wrestling, so like I was just trying to like stage dive and crowd surf constantly. I didn't even like really pay any mind to the music.
Right.
The first show, you know.
Right.
I just wanted to see my friend's band play, and then I saw these guys play, and I saw this sincere expression. That's what it was. I remember watching Nick play, and it was mostly Nick. Like the rest of the guys were like fun and crazy too, but like the thing about Nick is he was a really chill dude. He was really modest, like shy, just such a kind soul. You know what I mean? And then he goes up there and he's playing these to me like heavy metal riffs, which Once We Were was kind of like a metalcore band.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely, yeah.
But this was like in 2001, 2002, before it was like in Hot Topic and all that shit. So like, it was unheard of to me. And this dude goes from being like this super soft-spoken, gentle, shy dude, goofy too, to like this absolute monster. He was so intense, and I remember like watching him play these really technical riffs for the time, and headbanging in time, going nuts, but not missing a note, and just being blown away. Like, how do you do that? You know?
Right.
And then seeing him just completely leave it all out there and just sincerely like enjoy what he was doing, that like completely blew my mind, changed me. And like some of my friends that went with me were all like the little Mexican dudes and like, you know, Tommy Hilfiger and Polo and stuff, like showing up to this like hardcore punk show, like what is this shit, you know? Like I'm trying to mosh because I just like violence, you know, but I don't know nothing about the music.
Right.
And I remember showing up there and being like, yo, this is cool. This is like its own community. And one of my friends being like, you're sad. If this is your community, you're an idiot. And like I remember him hating it. And I'm like he was like the leader of our little clique, you know what I mean? And I remember like being like, yeah, like kind of like half-heartedly agreeing with him because I was a little bitch-ass follower back then. But in the back of my mind, I was like, yo, this is cool, man. There's no exclusion. There's no cool kids. Everybody was having fun and being friends, and like the music was kind of cool. Like I kind of rocked with the music. Like I found a local message board, the Once We Were message board, which turned into the Fresno Hardcore message board.
You know what's
and
funny?
I posted on there, and then I started going to every show possible.
before you continue, I actually still you can still access that message board. It still exists.
There's no way.
Yeah, it does. In fact, like, I was actually, like, months back, right? I was actually looking at the Occam's Razor, just looking up Occam's Razor in general.
Yeah.
And if you guys don't know about Occam's Razor...
It turned into the Occam's Razor board.
Yeah, like, if you guys don't know about Occam's Razor, they were, I guess, in modern terms, we can call them sort of like a screamo band at that, you know. They were kind of like...
in its most genuine sense, though, because people consider screamo like this weird version of radio pop punk now.
Sure.
This was actual, like, real, like, emotional... Mikey, their guitar, she's called emo violence.
Right.
It was, like, emotional music, but it was, like, really chaotic and violent and aggressive.
Yes.
At the same time.
Absolutely. And that's,
so like I think that some people that may listen may think, oh, screamo, and then they may think like was it Fall Out Boy or some weird stuff like that. And it's like, no, it is not that.
Yeah. And
not at all.
and he's right. The categorizations of this type of style of music. I mean, people used to call it emo core, shortened for like
Yeah, that
emotional
was another one.
hardcore. But there was a genre of emo back in the day that now is categorized as screamo. They used to call it emo violence. But anyway, kind of going back into the
Yeah,
subject.
if anybody wants to wonder what they sound like, just take like the Locusts or the Daughters or anything like that, like blast beats and just chaotic parts, and then put like sad emo octaves as the guitars being like speed strummed
Yes.
with two people that sounded like they were arguing, screaming.
Yes.
Like that's what they
That's really
sounded
what
like.
it was. That's really what it was.
And it was amazing to watch them play. Prove It got to play a lot of shows because of those guys.
Yes.
Because they were all straight edge dudes, and even though they may not have really identified with how we expressed our feelings,
yeah,
they still did show us love and give us that stage, which was really cool. And they didn't have to do that.
absolutely. And to kind of go back into the message board before that, currently the drummer, his name is Jordan Sobalu. He's currently
Shout out Jordan and M.
He's actually currently in a project called Reptoid, which is an experimental I guess noise project. But anyway, Daniel, you could actually still you can still look at those message boards. I mean, they're flooded with like a bunch of like weird posts from like bots or whatever. But you can still
That's
look
still
at
so crazy, dude.
Yeah, it's nuts, dude. I went into
You gotta find the Flying Brown. That was my I think my first screen name on that message board, on the first message board. Oh no, it changed over. The Once We Were message board became the Occam's Razor message board, which became the Fresno Hardcore message board, or the other way around.
Right. So are you looking at it?
No,
No. Okay. I have to send you the link like later on for that. But okay. So it's interesting that it kind of segues into this because he had mentioned about a community of folks who were part of this, and this is actually in my notes here. The scene, the scene that you were part of in Fresno. I mean, could you describe sort of what it was like? At least for me, I lived in Lemoore and kind of associated with Hanford kids, but then moved to Fresno to kind of get acquainted with people who were part of like the emo indie rock, like sort of a scene. I mean, what was it like for you? And I mean, I guess how did you sort of like feel about it, in the years that you were living at that time?
Well, when I first got, like, I'm gonna give you two perspectives if that's cool. Like,
Yeah.
one, like when I first got into it, and then now looking back, kind of what it meant or what it was.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first got into it, I want to say it was like 2001, I think, is around there, somewhere within a year of that. And I was just going to see Once We Were play, really.
Right.
And then it was like I'd go to any show possible. But what I noticed is that for me, it seemed fine because like a lot of people there were familiar faces. Like it was that group of kids that I freestyled with, like were in the band. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And then I I never went solo. Like Eric, who drums for Farooq, like he was the other guy out of all of our group of friends because we'd been friends since junior high and had the same group of friends through high school. Mm-hmm. And Eric was the other one who kind of got into music at a deeper level with me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so him and Big Mikey, who was the wheelman and just the freaking reason why any of us got to do any kind of music at any point, because that guy was just the most down and supportive friend and still is, there, just like he wasn't really trying to play no music, but he was always around and showing us new music and driving us everywhere. So like Big Mikey would fill the car up with anybody and everybody who was down to go.
Right.
And we would roll to these shows. So it didn't seem like anything new because like you're there with your friends. But then like there were certain people there that were like trying to grow the scene and trying to educate people on what was going on and trying to be welcoming, like Dustin and Eva Hall, which are brother and sister that had a band. I think they were called like Extinction 6 or something, and they were from Exeter. They were the most enthusiastic and down like people I had met about the Fresno scene, and they weren't even from Fresno. They were from Exeter.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, they took ownership of their area and were really trying to make that place better. And I thought that was super cool. And Dustin and Eva ended up forming Gather later, you know, which was like just such a cool band, such great people. So like they were there, and so it didn't seem like I didn't really feel that thinking back like that, like anxiety of like, oh, stranger danger, all these new experiences. It was more like an adventure. It was excitement, you know. It was like everybody was trying to be cool with each other. Everybody was trying to be friends. Now looking back, I didn't realize this until later, but like they weren't like, they were considered hardcore shows because they were being put on by a hardcore promoter. Right. But it was during that changing of the guards where hardcore meant something a little bit different, where like in the 90s, hardcore was hardcore punk. And hardcore was like the Sharps, the Skins, you know? So there wasn't a lot of like mosh metal bands that called themselves hardcore bands until the 2000s, really, you know? Right. So what I was going to watch play was a lot of grindcore, like the pre-grindcore and metalcore bands. I don't think I ever saw a straightforward hardcore band until like 2 years later. And so what I realize now, like looking back, is there was a divide because there was a Fresno hardcore scene that wasn't them. It was these punk rock bands. The one I could remember off the top of my head was called Middle Class Mile. And,
wow, that's a pretty good name.
there's a few other ones, but like I didn't listen to them or really rock with them, or like, because that like to me it was like this is punk rock, not realizing that it's the same thing and it came from punk rock. Like I didn't learn that till later in life. You know what I mean? Right. So like I was going to these metalcore shows. You know what I mean? Yeah. And everybody was hardcore dancing, but there was punk rock kids at those shows trying to circle pit, and I was always like, what is this about? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't get it till later, and I was like, oh, this dude was down, man. Like he was going to these metalcore shows, like doing punk rock stuff because that was fun to him. Like, yo, like I like look back like at a couple of people that I always thought were kind of crazy, and I was like, yo, they were really putting on. Like that's what's up. Right. I didn't actually like see like actual like more traditional style hardcore bands until like the Hope Conspiracy came around, and Frankie put that on at Pizza Land. And even then, they weren't really straightforward. They're like pretty newfangled for the time. They weren't like old school by any means. Right. You know, at the time. Right. But like the Warriors would play, and Warriors were like more of that. Like at the time before War Is Hell came out, they were more of like a straightforward hardcore band. They're from like Oxnard, Tehachapi area. And man, I fell in love with their sound, and really like they were one of my gateways into like actual hardcore instead of just metalcore, because before then I was listening to all the bands now that those kids that wear like makeup and black everything like worship now. You know what I mean? Yeah, man. Like As I Lay Dying was like the first pit I got into, and like I'm like, wow, so hardcore, and I look back, I'm like, yo, this is a metal band. What am I doing? You know what I mean? Well, but it was the problem. What the thing was, it was hardcore kids playing metal. Is what it was. So it was still hardcore in a way. And it's kind of like Farooq now, where it's like people consider us a hardcore band, but if you just objectively listen to our music, you'd be like, these guys are metal nerds. Yeah. Fully. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's true. That was kind of what the scene looked like, the landscape of it. It was kind of divided, and I was none the wiser to it. Well, because there was like a metal side to it and a punk rock side to it.
Let me ask you something. Do you think that sort of in that time frame, because you know I thought it was kind of a crazy time to be alive, at least for me, to see like these metalcore kids, right, you know, they came in and went to these like emo shows, dude, that they were seeing like bands like Atari Champ or something, the most inspirational, and I'm like,
oh yeah, because we only had so many venues and so many promoters, and the promoters were really versatile, and like so like what would end up happening is, even though like the genres were so different,
yeah,
everybody would try to get on any show because there was so few shows out there. So it kind of forced people to be versatile, and I still, anytime I book a show, I still try to book like that. I am by no means booking like the same bands, same style bands together. That to me is so counterintuitive and so against what the hardcore scene should be. And if you look at the East Coast, like all of them rock with each other like that, where you got H2O and Madball like kind of buddy like that, and those two bands like sound so different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And so like that was happening then, and it seems crazy, but really it's what made everything thrive, because everybody went and got to have fun, and there was no burnout, because the hardcore kids only got 2 bands to mosh to.
Yeah.
Instead of 7.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And like everybody got to have their fun, and the musicians, like a lot of us when we were like, so at that time when you started going to shows was probably when, like 2003, 4?
Yeah.
Okay, so by that time, me and Eric had our first band, The Dentist, and then I was still in a band with Mikey called Modus Operandi.
Man, I remember that band. Oh my god.
Yeah, so like we all went to the same high school, and everything went from word of mouth and then that message board. But we'd play in warehouses and in houses and in backyards and wherever, and anybody who had a band would play those shows. And it was just a complete clusterfuck. Like, really, like thinking back, like how did these things happen? Like whose dad was organizing these? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There were a few people that actually had their shit together. It just wasn't me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So like we would play with like we got to play. Me and Eric fell in love with this band, Peel Apparition.
Oh my god!
You know them?
Yes, yes.
Because Tommy was playing. We used to play in this band called Weevil.
Yes, yes.
And so like the Once We Were guys had introduced us to him. This is Tommy from Weevil, and he'd roll his eyes and be like, "Hi, I'm Tommy." You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so like he was playing for Peel Apparition, and they were just such a cool band, and we were super into it. But me and Eric were in this stupid mosh metal band. Called The Dentist, which was borderline a joke. Yeah. And we had built up this little following, but we were really like marking out for Peel Apparition in 2002, 2003. Like we were there singing their songs, and it was such a funny sight. And this was what spoke to the diversity there. So not just where the booking diverse, but like Peel Apparition was completely like an indie band. Like those guys would rule any hipster scene anywhere today.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
They are the primordial soup of what a hipster is today.
Right.
And they were just the coolest, though. Like, I'm not trying to use hipster in a negative connotation, referring to these guys. They were just at the forefront of like creativity.
Yes.
And style. And I loved it. And the funniest thing was, every guy kind of had their own style, but Tommy, being Tommy, would still play his what looked like, I hope it wasn't, or I don't know what the hell it was because I'm not too into guitars, but what looked like that BC Rich.
That's what it was.
Warlock.
It's
he was playing a BC Rich Warlock.
It was. And
he
here
was playing that, dude.
Yeah. He was
playing the shit out of it, dude.
Yes.
He was playing that thing better than anybody could possibly play it, and doing wonderfully with it.
Yes.
It just spoke to, like, that was the complete portrait of the diversity of the scene there.
Yes.
Was Tommy playing a BC Rich Warlock and Peel Apparition, which I don't know if you could make a break or do something where you could do a bumper and play some Peel Apparition for anybody listening who doesn't know who that is.
Yeah.
But, like, that is, like, just such a beautiful thing thinking back. Like, yo, that guy was legit playing, like, the most metalhead guitar that you could possibly play.
Yeah, I remember.
And playing this, like, really cool, groovy, like, indie rock that at one point brought tears to my eyes. Like, legit, dude, they caught me one day. They had little 18-year-old me in my feelings, like, completely one day.
Yeah. And
bro, like, that's how good they were. They actually, like, I was such a little meathead. They actually, like, opened up my mind. And, had me in my feelings for a little bit.
It's funny because the band that I used to be in, it was actually my first band. I was in this band called Winter Soldier, and I was associated with some Fresno folk, or not Fresno folk, but Hanford folk of Neil and Nathan Swift. They were
same thing to the rest of the world. Yeah, the Taco guys.
The Taco guys, and Taco.
I used to call them Taco. They hated
it. and the thing is that like those guys were the scene for the longest time. Them and this Holocrin band that actually had elements of like chord and.
Oh man, I remember that, dude. They were so cool.
Yeah, they were cool, man. They were fucking cool.
I forgot about them.
Yeah,
they had a bass player with a shaved head and like some bangs, right?
Yes.
Dude, he was hella good too.
Yes, and the funny thing is that
dude, that major flashback.
That dude, he ended up becoming the bass player for Winter Soldier because I sat on as a bassist and then went into playing guitar and played with this band for 4 years. But what I wanted to kind of point out is that Winter Soldier was, from my understanding, and maybe Nathan, I'll probably interview him someday, but maybe he can shed some light in this. Winter Soldier was highly influenced by Peel Apparition, and let me just kind of give you guys.
I remember we were lightweight salty about that.
and here's the thing is that like, in no way Winter Soldier sounded like Peel, but Peel Apparition and Winter Soldier were the first bands that played essentially this style called math rock, and people didn't really know
on our side of things.
Yeah, in our side of things.
I was listening to what they were listening to.
Sure.
And it made sense.
Yes.
And those Taco guys were in that metalcore band Taco, which was dope. But like Nate was like fully into indie rock. Like I remember having a phone conversation with him one day and him being like, "I don't listen to any of that metal stuff, dude." And I'm like, "What?" Like it blew my mind at the time. It blew my mind because like that's all I listened to and all I cared about in life. I don't listen to hardcore. I don't listen to metal, and it completely exploded my brain. But then it made sense later as a musician. Like, yeah, you should probably be more broad about your influences when you're writing music. You know.
Sure. And
so he taught me something on accident.
And the thing is that with Peel, oh man, I'm so glad. We're talking about this with Peel Apparition. When I first saw them, I mean, I couldn't fucking believe how good those guys were. Tommy and Jacob, which is the second guitarist. I mean, they were just like they were one of the reasons why I had my guitar like up like high on my chest. Because it just looks so cool. You know what I mean?
No, it doesn't.
So cool.
No, it doesn't, Art.
It looks cool, dude. I swear to God, I was like, Art, man.
It really doesn't, man. Cool is kind of a subjective thing, but I promise you it doesn't. But it's okay that you have it up there.
But anyway,
Steve Urkel thought he looked cool, bro.
Yo, look. Look. I got style.
You got nothing, dude. Let's just move it along.
I got style. My shit's hot.
Just move it along. What's on your notes? Just move it to the next, bro.
Anyway, all right. Anyway,
I don't want to do this to you.
Anyway, but
you know how I know it doesn't look cool because I was one of those geeks that wore it up there too, playing for modals.
Yeah. I mean, Mikey O'Connell used to have his guitar up high like that. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was just trying to be like him because he was just wildly skilled. And so, like, I was just, like, he's the one that taught me, like, everything that I could possibly know about playing any kind of guitar or bass at first. He was, like, the first guitarist I worked with, Oh, shoot. 3 minutes ago, I just got a notification. So this isn't breaking news now, but when this airs, this will be fully news.
Cool.
If you want to hear this. But Glacier Recordings just mentioned us in a post. Glacier Recordings is a new record label from the Bay Area, run by Keith from Glacier Eater, which is really, really cool. He calls them guitar-driven metal band.
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Also a member of Sworn Vengeance, which is like one of the most influential
Wow.
West Coast metalcore bands ever.
Right.
Like that band kind of fathered my style in general. Between them and this band from Oakland called Lowlife, like that is basically like most of my go-to style when it comes to hardcore. Are like those two bands are like were very influential with me. They actually offered us a record deal and are going to put us on their roster as their first release for our new album that we've been working on for the past year. We've been in talks with them since last tour, and it progressed wonderfully. Keith has been like such a, I don't use this word because it's kind of like religious, and I'm not religious, but like I can't think of a better word other than blessing to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
him and Ryan and all the guys from Sworn Vengeance, really. But those two have put in a lot of like time and effort to really like help us out, just because they genuinely like us, and they're genuinely good dudes that just support what they like with all their hearts.
Absolutely.
So Ryan Encinas from Sworn Vengeance, their singer, has just like he's been putting it down on us for like this really good graphic design work. He's been super patient with us and just a consummate professional in any way. And then Keith started the label, and we've been talking with him in it, and he wanted us to put out an album as his first release, and he just announced it. So I'm gonna read this to you if you don't mind.
Yeah, I don't mind at all.
This
is probably gonna segue. It's gonna segue
you're getting to share this moment with me too, which is really cool. You know what I mean? So Glacier Recordings posted. Glacier Recordings is extremely excited to announce we will be releasing a new Farooq album this summer with an exclamation point. Farooq will record their Glacier Recordings debut with Zach Oren. Formerly, he's of Castle Ultimate Productions, but he's going to be doing it in Oakland's Shark Bite Studios this weekend. I could cry right now, dude. Zach, we had Zach mix and master our last album. We did all the tracking ourselves. The guy was way good to us. Like, I can't thank him enough. Like, I'm just completely humbled that I got to interact with him and work with him. He's done work on some Carnifex albums. He did some of the early First Blood. He did some of the early Animosity records. So a lot of the stuff that we were listening to as youngsters, me and Eric mainly, were done by him, like mixed, mastered, recorded, engineered. Some degree, some part of it was done by Zach. So Phil, being the organizational and business wizard he is, our guitarist, Philip Camacho, for the last album, reached out to Zach, and Zach was willing to work with us, which is like, yo, he deserves every penny he gets and so much more.
Absolutely.
So now a year later, after we released the Faction, which was last year's album, we get to go in and be with him in person in his studio recording this full-length album. And the boys are leaving Fresno tomorrow at 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning.
Awesome.
To be there at 11 a.m. to start tracking drums. So hopefully Eric could sleep in the van or in the car on the way there. So he's nice and rested. They've been practicing their asses off. We've been practicing with a click track, dude. Eric's been having the click track and scratch guitar in his headphones. And we've been practicing the entire album front to back twice every practice session.
Yeah, I saw that. I was actually watching.
Oh yeah, we've been posting on Instagram and stuff.
Yeah. I was watching some of the Instagram posts on that. And this is actually kind of a good segue because it now, since we had sort of talked about sort of your origins and kind of the scene, I guess we can kind of go into your current project, Farooq, and also adding into what today's scene is like as well. This is probably going to be, I think, one of my most interesting part of the interview. Farooq is fronted obviously you front Farooq and Phil and Eric. Your bass player, I don't know who your bass player is, man.
Our bass player is the next generation of Hanford, actually.
Yeah.
Funny full circle story there.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So let's I guess let's talk about Farooq a little bit and sort of the currently what the scene is like today.
Okay. Ask away. I'm sorry if I seem a little bit distracted. I'm just kind of like, it's finally happening. You know what I mean?
That's fine. That's fine.
So I'm actually trying to share this on Facebook right now because I gotta repost it.
Right.
So you're gonna be here on this with me really quick.
That's fine.
If you want to give them some background on Farooq and when we started, I think you actually played some of the first.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let me go ahead and do that while Daniel handles some business. So, kind of a funny thing. Farooq kind of started with basically Daniel and Phil, who were sort of trading riffs amongst each other, and knowing Daniel, he is a pretty damn good production artist as well. He would actually track all these drum parts and kind of write all these riffs and such. Have these collaborations with Phil on some of this writing as well. And most of the drum tracking were done, I believe, with free loops and stuff, some sort of sequencer program. But they were pretty original works, and I had the chance to play a couple of these songs in its inception. I think I played them around early 2010. Yeah, sometime around there, 2010. Yeah. 2010 to 2011. And so Farooq has actually been around for quite some time. They've been around for about close to 8 years.
In one way or another, right?
Yeah. And having it built up, little by little, it's becoming, this really tight entity. I couldn't even imagine what it would have been, I couldn't see what was going to happen until now, as I sort of like learned how to play some of these early recordings and such, and seeing how Daniel had processed these songs and sort of shown me some demos. Which, by the way, thank you very much for sharing those, man, because those recordings, man, there's some classics, dude. They got some classic shit in there, man. Something about you and Phil, dude. And also Eric as well. I'm hearing that he also writes some of the music as well too, right?
Eric probably writes our catchiest riffs.
Okay.
Like per cap, like, okay, Eric will give us maybe 4 riffs an album.
Okay.
But every single riff is the catchiest riff of the song.
Yeah.
Or sometimes of the entire album. That's not a knock to anybody else that's writing riffs, but the dude, like, he's got some magic there. Now, can he write an entire song in one sitting, or can he put anything together to that degree? He probably could, but he hasn't.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
Phil is that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That can put together just a beautiful, detailed song completely by himself.
Yeah,
with really good riffs. Or, Phil will have a couple of, banger riffs mixed in with the good riffs. Phil doesn't write a bad riff. I've seen him throw away riffs that would be some other band's, best song. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Phil's filtering, his quality control is ridiculous. That guy is, just next level quality as a musician. But Eric, I think it's because he focuses all of his creative energy into one 8-bar riff, and they're always just very. They just got a different spice to them, man, and we're able to learn them and build songs around them.
Right.
A lot of songs have happened based off of Eric's riffs.
Right.
He's got one riff, and then me and or Phil will write around it.
Right, right.
So
So
like, yeah, that guy's magic, dude. I'm so glad. Like, who else has a drummer that writes such ridiculous garbage?
and so
I'm sure there are. But like,
basically Farouk was again built off of two individuals who, kind of were sharing just ideas and sort of built this entity that is now what it is today. As far as that's concerned, what do you think of the scene is at this point? Like, how do you feel what the scene is like now than it was before? Because I mean, obviously,
well,
I moved all the way from California to Connecticut, and kind of am sort of lost as to seeing what people are doing these days, like what kind of ideas are being fleshed out. You know what I mean?
I don't know. It's kind of a pretty layered question
Right.
because when we first started playing shows, it was 2012, I think. Our first show was October of 2011.
Right. Right.
We played a Power Driver Pro Wrestling
Right.
with uh, four people. Four people as a
Right.
and then we didn't play shows until we were really, really ready to play. And then, John Esquivel, Religious Appeal, Johnny Appeal, or whatever, however you may know him. I know him as Juanito, that's my brother. He was booking shows here and there at the Chinatown Youth Center. And, there was other people booking there, Mike, a.k.a. X and X. He was helping run the place and really pivotal in just keeping that place alive.
Right. Right.
Fresno owes that guy everything he can. But he's such a humble dude; he'll never ask for it.
Right. Right.
He we were always good friends with him, so he put us on shows there at Chinatown Youth Center, and then that became our home between 2011 and 2016. Is I think when they stopped. They had to shut down shows there, and that was like our regular place. We played the Bell Tower once, and we played, I think, Strummers a few times, and we still continue to play Strummers here and there. But the Chinatown Youth Center was our home. We played Cup of Joe even. So the scene was kind of between 2012 and 2014. It was really popping. There was a good number of fans really active doing things. And then there started to be too many shows there, and there was a burnout. And then it was you could barely get anybody to a show no matter what. And
Right.
Big hyped up bands. And it got kind of the Fresno scene stays young because nobody sticks around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you continually have these teenagers trying to run shit, and they just some of them don't have the capacity for it. And then when they get older, they get jaded, and Fresno probably beats them down because it's not the most, not the easiest place to grow as a creative here.
Right.
It's getting easier thanks to people like Sam Hansen, who does the marketing for the Fresno Grizzlies. And there's a lot of other people to be named there. But there are a lot more creative people who are staying in Fresno and leading the place, bringing good things to Fresno.
Right.
Arturo Braceta, or a.k.a. Turtle, he's one of those other people who's been a creative person who's in these positions to bring things to Fresno, whereas most other people who have gotten to a certain level, they've left. You know what I mean?
Right.
There are actually locals here that are bringing things back. But it has been hit and miss. Now you have Nolan Davis with bad music, bad shows, bad compilation. He's done a bunch of different things. He's actually moved, but he still actively does shows in Fresno with the help of Green Garcia and Full Circle Brewery. So they're doing a lot of metal and hardcore punk rock over there now. With this awesome stage made by, I think the guy's name is Fred Tucker.
Yeah.
He put together this stage. I think it was him. I don't know if he did it by himself, but I know that he's been at the forefront of it. He runs sound over there, and the stage is great. You know what I mean? So now you have Strummers that does the Strummers level shows of all different types, and it's popular.
Mm-hmm.
I love that place, and I'm proud of it that it's doing stuff because it brings good things to the city. And Numbskull and all them are still bringing awesome stuff to the city. And man, I'm so appreciative of that. But then you have Nolan and Rad um, bringing things of that level and things on the come up. What
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Out to full circle, which is amazing. So it's really starting to get another insurgence of local bands from around the valley coming around, and then luckily we'll be able to come back into it because the movers and shakers and the other bands have always been kind to us, supportive of us, and really respected what we do and what we bring to the table. So like, since we've been working on this album, luckily for us, like people didn't forget about us.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna get to make this announcement, and we're gonna get to hit things again. You know what I mean? And it's been cool. Nolan's putting on a metal fest at Full Circle in the summer. We're gonna get to play,
Mm-hmm.
and yo, man, you can't complain, man. Like, if you're gonna complain, you better be working as hard as people doing stuff out here.
Absolutely.
Shut up and get to work. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So like, it's up and down, just like any scene. You have people that are leaders, and sometimes they run into trouble, or they have things come up, and they're not able to lead anymore, and somebody else has a step to the helm.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily for us, Nolan Davis has been one of those people. Done that,
Yep.
And that's just the metal and hardcore side that we mostly identify with. But then you got Franco from the Militia, and they've been a staple in the Fresno hardcore punk rock out there since 2003.
Mm-hmm.
They're still going, and Franco's putting on shows, and he's a fully grown man with a family who's super into just keeping the city alive and keeping things going.
Right.
He's still booking, and he's still doing great things and putting on these really wild house shows.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we'll actually go play. We'll go play punk rock shows at the drop of a hat because that's our dog. Like, we love Franco. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And there's just good energy out there, man. We go out there respectful to what they do, and they come and watch us. And if they dig what we're doing, they participate. And if they don't, they chill on the side and enjoy their beers, and it's really all good.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So he's doing that too, as well. Like, there's cool things happening, and there's stuff to do in this city. You know what I mean? And I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to be from here, and we're signed now with this label from the Bay Area, but they know that we put on for our city, and they respect it too, and they're cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that sort of just
I don't know if I did there.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's I mean, kind of, you pretty much answered my question on that, but I guess we can just sort of just end it from on that note. Briefly, what are you currently working on, and what will you be working on in the next, I guess, few months or years? Since now that you have a record label, what do you guys think you're going to be heading towards to?
Could you go to like a music break real quick?
Yeah.
So sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're gonna go on a slight music break here.
You can play that Pink Field, play Cross the Arctic.
All right, I'll go ahead and do that.
Checking to make sure my post. Okay, you're recording. So what am I working on with the question?
Yeah, so basically, kind of, well, what are you guys' plans for, I guess, the next few months, years, at this point? I'm kind of curious.
Let's talk about the future.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now, no disrespect to the other things I have coming up, but this week is strictly the new album. Like, I'm just practicing vocals, memorizing my lyrics, and trying to just have uh, the best session possible with Zach and Sharkbite.
Mm-hmm.
That guy is. I can't tell you enough. I can't tell you enough about this guy without people thinking that I'm in love with him. But he does amazing work, and as a musician and an artist, like, you have to come correct with somebody like that because it's
Right.
disrespectful to him if you don't. So
Right.
I'm really spending as much focus and energy on just that. And
Right.
then once it's done, I'll be doing recording sessions for the Militia, recording, mixing, and mastering an EP for them.
Mm-hmm.
Doing some select vocal recording sessions and things for other artists that I'm working with when they hit me up.
Mm-hmm.
I think J-Dub is going to have some new stuff coming out. That's my cousin that I do production and recording and all kinds of just artist music stuff with. I'll be going to Southern California in the first weekend of May to see my good friend Carter Deems perform, and Brett Laughing Stock. They're both performing, so I'll get to spend some time out there. And then, all the while, I'll be listening to these instrumentals that my homie, my brother Arthur Bueno is sending me. Because you sent me an email the other day saying, you're making another record. You need to be rapping right now.
Yeah.
And so, and basically, just did what a good brother does, which is tells me what I need to hear and what I need to do, and I'm just gonna humbly listen. So I think the first email was, "I'm making all your beats. You're doing this, man." And I couldn't do nothing but say, like, "All right, I'm doing it." You know what I mean? So
Right.
Arthur's gonna make me some really cool hip hop beats, and
I'm gonna try to
I'm gonna get to rap over them and sing over them.
Yeah.
And do all the cool expression things that I do.
Absolutely.
And I also have been clunking around an idea with my little brother to start a straight edge band.
Right.
And that's always like something we always talk about. And there's always these little dream projects that you have. But first and foremost, the thing that's up after this album gets recorded, and I mean, I'm sure I'll have to collaborate with Glacier for the promo and the album art and all the administrative things that need to be done. Keith Glacier has been 100% just supportive of the vision I have and respectful to me as an artist, which I take as such a compliment because that guy's wildly talented.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And he's talented enough to tell me, "Yo, you're dumb. That's a dumb idea," and I would understand. Like he's wildly talented. I'm just happy to be in his presence and with him as a now kind of he'll be kind of helping lead our band now as a lady head. So I'll have to be doing that. But when it comes to creatively, it's me and you, dude. I'm gonna be rapping. I got that studio there, and I got one at my house too. And I'm gonna be sending you these dorky, like, beautiful instrumentals that are gonna make me want to sing and not rap. And I'm gonna have to be smart and have emotions and stuff again.
Well,
my lady Erin will love. Like, she'll love that. Like, Erin's probably gonna help me write most of the songs because her taste in music is better than mine, and she's got such a wonderful ear for things.
Man, I haven't. I've always I've been wanting to get the chance to meet your girl, man. She's like, some of the grams that she has posted up are just fucking hilarious as fuck, man.
Oh, she's fully okay.
She's hella fun. And you know what the coolest part is that she's so into wrestling, dude. It's so good. I'm like, oh my god, that is fucking sick, dude. Ugh, man. But I'll definitely meet her someday. But anyway, I guess I will conclude the podcast, man. I just want to say thank you for being a guest on this show and
Yo, I am honored to do anything with you. You know that. I love you. I give you hell constantly.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Man,
of course.
You are like such an inspiration to me, and the fact that you credit me as somebody who helped you in life, just it makes me feel like I'm not such a piece of crap after all. No matter what people have told me between the years of 2004 and 2007.
Yeah.
when,
Yeah,
when I was,
yeah.
I guess from other reports, I was a pretty rude and negative guy, and for some reason, I wasn't to you, or
No.
I wasn't that much to you. Like, I don't know why. Like, I should have victimized you and been horrible to you, like I was to everybody else. And really, I just like to roast people, and they didn't really understand it. But like, it's also rude to act like that. So if people think I was a jerk back then, they're very justified in that. But
Yeah.
dude, like, I think for us, we bonded over Peel Apparition.
That's
And
probably
Peel
what it
Apparition
is.
was like my secret soft spot in my heart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's totally what
Because
it
you better
was.
believe I was like, playing these shows with them, showing up to watch them play or staying to watch them play. And like, they weren't playing stages, so we were standing face to face with them, singing in their faces. That was me and Eric.
Yeah.
And then we go and do this stupid, like, ignorant metalcore. You know what I mean? Like, but like, me and you bonded over that, and then you hit me up to do some rap beats for you, and then all of a sudden, like, we're fucking best friends in the whole wide world, and now I couldn't imagine my life without your random phone calls and cussing you out every once in a while for fun.
Absolutely, and I feel the same way too. I mean, I'm just so proud of you to think that even till this day, you're still an artist and you're still trying to keep it up. And I couldn't even thank you enough to actually sticking around, especially in the times of my need. You know what I mean? And I've had a pretty rough year last year, so. Again, I can't thank you enough to being part of this podcast, man. And do you have
Truly honored, man.
Do you have any shout outs that you wanted to make before we close this down?
Shout out to my brother Bueno Balls. He's an amazing energy, and people should be showing you the love you deserve. And hopefully, this podcast for you is something that you're able to just constantly do and find fulfillment in. And hopefully it gets the support it deserves, man, because you're just this awesome dude, and you're wildly talented, and like, I think that you're probably one of the most slept on people in this world.
Well, thank you.
Whatever you're gonna do, whether it's photography, guitar stuff, or nerdy podcast, dorky YouTube vlogs, whatever you do, you've always been awesome at it. And I'm a big fan of you, man. And this is just the Arthur Bueno Love Fest. It's the Arthur Bueno 2 hours of love. And I want to shout out my dudes in Farooq for putting in the major work. Eric Martinez, the drummer Philip Camacho, our dad and guitar player, and our power Philip Camacho is our bass. And my brother, I love him so much. Brandon Rubio, who's just been like an amoeba for us, going from bass to guitar, and just being so workable and so positive.
Yep.
And our newest member, Adam Lopez, aka Aladdin, who's just as talented as he is handsome, and we're just so lucky to have him. He joined late in the game, and just he's balancing a lot and just being a fully competent and cool musician. Who puts in so much work, and I'm hoping that he can be a part of our success, and we bring him good things as joining us, because he's been just a great addition, and I'm stoked to be part of the Glacier Records family now, and to get to do things with Glacier Eater and Sworn Vengeance in the future is going to be awesome, because they always have anytime we're up there, made it a point to, try to collaborate with us, which I'm so humbled by that. Like, to be amongst so much talent, it feels like I'm under the learning tree right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't stop,
I'm stoked
man.
on it, man. Like,
it doesn't stop.
Like, you don't ever stop. Yeah, so like, I'm out here on Facebook posting these updates for Farooq. You can see a lot of stupid videos, and I want to shout out also our real quick, last tour. I feel like I can't thank these guys enough. Good Stitch Embroidery and Robert Makes. They sponsored our last tour vlog, and I'll probably be thanking them forever, because like, their support really got us through, and they're two good places. Robert Makes is an animator, or a illustrator, a cartoonist, and just an overall talented dude. He has a band and plays accordion. And he's talented. Like, he's an artist. And Good Stitch is this great embroidery place that makes most of our high-end merchandise. Our hat, that's for sure. Our expensive stuff. And he makes it wonderfully, and is nothing but fair and great at what he does. So shout them out, and I'll keep going. My mom, my dad, my grandma. Rest in peace, Mr. Melody. Rest in peace, Ray Castro. Mr. Castro. I'll go forever, dude. You're just gonna have to fade me out and play that song. Peel Apparition. Dude, you should have recorded that. That was like my best singing performance.
All right, Daniel. I really appreciate you coming to the podcast, man. Thanks so very much, dude.
Thank you, dude. Love you, man.
Love you too. Thanks, Daniel, again for coming in to talk with me here at the Bueno Power Hour podcast. You can find them in platforms such as Bandcamp, Facebook, Instagram, and I believe they have some of their works in iTunes and in Spotify. So definitely check them out. And this is, again, the second episode of the Bueno Power Hour podcast. I will be uploading this here on SoundCloud, and also going to be uploading these on YouTube. And so this is definitely going to be a great kind of journey for me to interview these folks that I've always wanted to interview, and kind of just pick their brain on things that I was very curious about. I know I'm a little new at these kinds of things, and having to ask these like sort of questions about the person and just their thoughts, it definitely is new, and this is probably the reason why I am not a radio DJ. But I love to talk. I love having conversations with my friends and people that I aspire to be. And let's hope that I can keep going with this podcast, and interview people that I love and respect. So thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.